Anyextee here, and it is Christmas Eve in Egypt. Did you know that it was Christmas Eve in Egypt today? Tomorrow is Christmas Day. Today, January 6th, 2023, and it is Coptic Christmas Eve in Egypt. Tomorrow will be Christmas. And so I am here at the Move and Pick Hotel, the new hotel. There's the old Move and Pick Hotel. There's the tower. I'm here in Aswan, and I just figured that I would take the time to do a Q&A and celebrate the holiday here. What's up, Christopher? What's up, Mr. L? Yes, January 6th. So what does that mean? That means it is Christmas Eve in Egypt. Tomorrow, January 7th, is Coptic Christmas Day. And so I'm gonna do this live stream so that if you guys have any questions, you can ask them here. I figure we'll just do a Q&A, or I can talk to you for a little bit. So we are in Aswan. We're at the Move and Pick Hotel, the new hotel. The old Move and Pick is over there. You can see the tower. We're on Elephantine Island. Just across the way over here are the tombs that I went live from the other day. And we've been here in Aswan now for about a week, actually a week. 1 week ago today, we've been hanging out in Aswan. We celebrated New Year's here. Really interesting. What's up, Steve? Been really interesting for me and my family. Today is also another very special day for my family and I because it marks our 1 year anniversary living in Egypt, living in Luxor. Although I had a private client hire me to do a small private tour here in Aswan, and I took my family along to hang out with me, doing some downtime. Thank you, Mr. L. Yeah, so I have my wife and daughter here in Aswan with me. I'm now finished with the private tour, by the way, so we've spent a lot of time hanging out here and doing a lot of work, getting a lot of B-roll, a lot of footage. Just happy Egyptian anniversary. Thank you, Smiley. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. Yeah, so again, today's not only Christmas Eve, but it's also 1 year that we moved to Egypt. I remember when we first came here last year and we arrived at the airport in Luxor, there was a big Christmas tree, and we thought it was strange to still see a tree up after New Year's. And I didn't realize at the time, I wasn't aware of the fact that Coptic Christmas is actually later. So this is a little strange. We are cut out for a minute. So yeah, it was a little strange when we first came to Luxor last year, but then we discovered that it's actually Coptic Christmas on January 7th, making January 6th Christmas Eve. Oh, Stein, what's up? I didn't realize that was you. And yeah, so again, it's been a year since we've been living in Luxor. If you guys are new to the channel, you can follow the Living in Luxor vlog series, which is basically our vlog series as American expats living in Luxor here in Egypt. Although again, today I'm coming to you from Aswan. This is the hotel. This is actually where we stay when we do our major group tours in Aswan usually. You guys can see the pool down here. There's a restaurant. These are the rooms here. Really big pool. It's warm at night and it has a spectacular view of the tombs. And just in the distance over here on the other side of the building is the Aswan Quarry, where you find the unfinished obelisk and numerous mysteries at the quarry. I do have a ultimate guide to the Aswan Quarry coming out, where I hope to provide some answers to some of the mysteries and reveal the mysteries that are present at the quarry. And then let's see, so in the distance you also have Philae, which is the temple of Isis. the temple consecrated to Iset. And way in the distance, you have Kalabsha, which is a rarely seen temple that we visited the other day. I actually have a lot of footage for you guys. I do have a lot of documentary footage, investigative videos, and more, including a lot of explorations into some of the new sites that I've never even seen here in Aswan. It's been over a decade that I've been coming to Egypt. I was here during the Arab Spring, the Egyptian Revolution. I filmed that a decade ago, and as many of you know, John Anthony West was my mentor, and I was here on his study trips in Egypt, learning from him about the symbolist interpretation of magical Egypt. And I've been leading my own tours through Adept Expeditions. Sahila and I carry on tradition. Stein just had a question. Let me scroll up and see. Oh, I missed that. I can't see that. Why can I not see the comments? Because I'm doing the live, your comments just come up and they disappear. Got some people eating down here. So yeah, I guess we'll just open up the mic and I'll try to pay more attention to the questions here as they come across the screen. Good, we are here. Ooh, odd we are here. Yeah, John, happy Coptic Christmas Eve from Egypt. Truth be told, I didn't even remember or realize today was Christmas Eve until my tour manager, I saw his Facebook post and wishing everyone a happy Christmas Eve. And I remembered, and that also made me remember that it's been our 1 year anniversary. So we have now been living in Egypt for exactly 1 year. Yeah, so I'm gonna have a lot of, let's see, when is the museum open? Okay, that's what I thought I saw before. Yeah, so you're probably talking about the new Grand Egyptian Museum, because there's also a new African culture, Nubian museum that's opening up here as well. Here in Aswan, we have the Nubian Museum, where they have the Napta Playa stones. If you check my live playlist of live streams, you'll see the live Napta Playa stones at the Nubian Museum live stream from the other day. So there's that museum, and there's a smaller Nubian museum over here, and then there's a new one that's open up in distance. But I think you're talking about the GEM, which is the Grand Egyptian Museum that everyone's waiting for to open up. I mean, it was supposed to open up years ago, and then COVID happened, and that slowed the progress. Yeah, the GEM. And then that slowed progress. And they have been opening it up for some VIP exclusive visits. I know like some school children have been able to get in there so far. Different figures from around the world. I know they're trying to have some of the world's elite come in, and a lot of the Egyptologists come in early. It was supposed to open up in November, but here we are already in January. So we're on Egyptian time any day now. I would suppose they would have everything together by the summer. I can't see it taking much longer than that. From what I heard, it was already supposed to be open. So who knows? I don't understand what the holdup is yet, but I'm sure they have their reasons for it. And it should be open soon. And you can count on me as your man on the ground, because I do plan on being there when they open up. I'll try to get in as soon as possible and get coverage for you guys, so you can see that here on the channel. You definitely want to watch this space if you're interested in the Aswan Quarry, because again, I'm going to be unleashing a bunch of Aswan Quarry videos. I'm gonna publish my videos in the Aswan Quarry with John Anthony West, with Stephen Mailer, with Christopher Dunn, more recent trip with Johanna James, and then Kaylee from the Kaylee with History YouTube channel. I mean, I've been to the Aswan Quarry dozens of times, and I have footage, I mean, nearly a decade's worth of footage from the Aswan Quarry. It's something I've been studying for nearly a decade, and I haven't really made a video on it yet because I wasn't in position to, you know, I I wanted to get more information and do some more digging, and it wasn't at the top of my priority list. And so, but I am going to be putting up my footage that has been collected throughout the years. I'm gonna do an official investigation into the Aswan quarry, the scoop marks, the mysterious marks we see there, and the stone cutting methods. I'm gonna do a full video that addresses a lot of the different problems that are posed there, and discuss the alternative theories with respect to like the lost ancient technology theorists. Yep, I've been there with Christopher Dunn, engineer Christopher Dunn, and I'm not gonna say I agree with every aspect of that school of thought. I'll wait till the video comes out, and then after that, I plan on putting together an ultimate guide to the Aswan quarry. So expect a lot of Aswan quarry videos to come as soon as I get the chance to edit. I do have some more private clients flying in from time to time. I have different individuals or small groups, usually people with special interests in esotericism or other authors and researchers, who fly in and hire me to do private tours. I do offer the private tours in addition to our major group tours that you can join at adeptexpeditions.com. Just a reminder, in March, we still have some spaces left. It's filling up, it's gonna sell out soon, but I have the March Ancient Technology and Esoteric Symbolism Tour that I will be leading and co-hosting with British actress, comedian, ancient history geek, Johanna James from the Funny Old World YouTube channel. And then in September, I'd like to cordially invite you to an unprecedented, groundbreaking trip. It's going to be Ancient Architects' first ever community adventure in Egypt, in collaboration with Adept Expeditions. So Matt Simpson from Ancient Architects YouTube channel and this will be his first time in Egypt this September. That trip is already filling up. I just softly announced it recently, and it is almost full. So if you want to join that, you can learn more. Choking here. You can learn more at adeptexpeditions.com. And then we also have the Turkey tour with Johanna James coming up in November. And really probably my favorite trip of the year, the most slept on of all, is the Mysteries of the Maya annual community adventure that I do with Karina Eats Kawat, which is an amazing time. We travel through the land of the Maya, talking about the esoteric symbolism there as well, and covering all the many mysteries. So yeah, I'm just here hanging out. This is gonna be our last night in Aswan. Tomorrow morning, we are headed back to Luxor. We'll probably stop at Edfu on the way back. Thank you, unknown friend. I appreciate the kind words. You can bank on me keeping it up. I will never fall off, I promise. I mean, I'll try my best. The reality is, I do have a family to feed, and as I often say, Ancient, I hope you get more info for the book. Oh yeah, John, the book is actually finished. The book is finished. I'm just waiting for some endorsements to come back, and it'll be published soon. But yeah. So the book, for those that may not be familiar, is an esoteric symbolist guidebook to the Luxor Temple of Man. It's a beginner to intermediary guide for those that may or may not be familiar with the symbolist approach to the Luxor Temple that was developed by R.A. Schwala de Lubitsch, French Hermeticist, alchemist, so I should say Alsatian. Merry Christmas from Norway. Merry Coptic Christmas to you, Norway. Merry Coptic Christmas to everyone all around the world. Not that I'm a huge Christmas guy. We do celebrate it to an extent. You know, I understand its pagan roots, and I celebrate different holidays from different religions and cultures from around the world. Just because I'm mentioning Christmas doesn't necessarily mean that I'm a Christian. Just want to put that out there. As you guys know, I subscribe really to universal principles, the ancient world's religion, in a sense. I am a practitioner of the Western esoteric tradition. And so, but regardless, we like to celebrate Christmas like anybody else. And soon it'll be Ramadan here. We'll be celebrating Ramadan a few more months here in Egypt. Joining in on the fasting with our friends in Luxor. So yep, this is Aswan here. Again, this is the Move and Pick Hotel. We stay over here too. This is the old hotel. I actually like staying here as well. You go up to the tower, you get the panoramic view of all of Aswan. Nubia. This is where there's a higher concentration of Nubian population. Really starting over here, just before the first cataract and the high dam. And they were actually displaced when they constructed the dam. A lot of water came through and washed out the Nubian village, displaced a lot of people in their homes, and then the government relocated them. But the Nubians really are heavily concentrated in that area all the way into Sudan. Then you have Sudanese people and Nubians that are in Sudan as well as Egypt. Nubians have always been part of the ancient Egyptian culture. There were Nubian pharaohs throughout the many years of the ancient Egyptian civilization. And there were times when the Nubians were enemies of Egypt. They were considered some of the nine bows, the foreigners of Egypt. And hello, Stavros. And so, yeah, and then there are other times where Nubians were hired as mercenaries to work in the Egyptian army, to work the military rather, working under Ramses. And again, you've had Nubian pharaohs in Egypt. There are Nubian temples, Egyptian temples just beyond the way. There's even Nubian deities that are, and then of course the triad here, the Elephantine triad, which consists of Khnum, Satet, or Satis, Satet, and Nukit. And so Satet is the consort, Nukit would be like the daughter, principal in the triad. Khnum is he who fashions humanity on the potter's wheel and gives life, very similar to the Christian tradition. We're celebrating Christmas today, the Christian tradition where in the beginning, clay was used to fashion man, along with the rib to fashion Eve and so forth. But Khnum fashions humanity on the potter's wheel, and he is one of the chief Netru here. Netru is plural for Netcher. Netcher is God, or a lot of people read it as Neter because of the T, but the T with Egyptian hieroglyphs, it's actually a ch sound, so it's Netcher. Netcher is what we would say a god today, but it's best viewed as a principle or aspect of nature and cosmology as well. It's all really cosmology. A lot of the symbolism all throughout Egypt is rooted in esoteric principles, cosmological principles, universal immutable laws, the same principles that are perpetuated throughout the ancient mystery schools in an esoteric tradition, which you also find rooted in indigenous traditions around the world, which in some cases radically differ, from a lot of Western thinking. Stein is in the comments. I do plan on getting a Menkare or Menkara video up, depending how you want to pronounce that. Mr. Shanibli, Merry Christmas. I missed the question. If you can ask that question again. I saw it appear on the screen and then it just disappeared. It's getting dark, so my eyes, I'm having a little bit of trouble reading some of the text that's coming across the screen, but if you want to put that question up again, I'll make best efforts to answer it. Merry Christmas, ancient architects. Matt Simpson in the place to be. Super excited to have Matt joining us in Egypt for this unprecedented event. Ancient Architects' first community adventure in conjunction with Adept Expeditions. Matt Simpson, Anyextee, co-hosting the Ancient Architecture and Esoteric Symbolism Tour of Egypt. This is going to be an amazing event. Bring it on. And so, yeah, I'm telling you guys, it's filling up fast. It's going to sell out. We've already got a number of people. It was basically a soft launch. I just kind of mentioned it here and there softly, and word got out, and people are already signing up. It's going to fill up fast. This is your opportunity. If you've ever wanted to see Egypt in a unique way, this is a special permissions tour, VIP access, where we will get access to sites that are not only often passed over by the casual tourist, but are not available to the general public. Of course, we're going to have access inside the Sphinx enclosure. We'll walk around and talk about standard Egyptology, as well as discuss the alternative theories. And at least with respect to me, from an unbiased perspective, I like to put all the pieces on the table. I'm sure Matt is going to have some interesting stuff to contribute to the conversation. Let's see, Ancient Architect. I've already started my homework, lots and lots and lots to look at in detail. And speaking of detail, look at the details here in Aswan. If you are Afrocentric living in Egypt, then run, leave. No, that's not entirely true. And so, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself Afrocentric, but I know I have a lot of Afrocentric friends. And so, yeah, it depends where you go and who you deal with. It's like anything, anywhere in the world, just like in America, you know, you're gonna have negative and positive people wherever you go. It's interesting because racism is, I mean, it's everywhere. It's a worldwide issue, but it's a lot different here in Egypt than it is in America. That's not to say that it isn't here. I mean, truth be told, it's here as well. The Afrocentric point of view, of course, it depends. If you're talking about Afrocentric scholars, I mean, I'm very well immersed in that. The truth be told, a lot of my introduction to ancient Egypt was through Afrocentric concepts. When I lived on the East Coast in Boston, Massachusetts, in the US, I would often travel to New York. I worked in the music industry for over 20 years, specifically in hip hop. I grew up with the hip hop culture, and in the early 90s, I was driving, going back and forth to New York, and I was part of a lot of those lectures. Bobby Hemmett, Phil, all of them. I know Dr. Ben. I mean, I've studied at, the Nile Valley School, a lot of the teachings about Kemet. And I mean, I learned about Kemet not through Stephen Mailer or Yusuf. I learned about Kemet through KRS-One and hip hop heads in New York. That's when I realized in the 90s that, Egypt has this ancient name, Kemet. I used to get Kemet magazine back in the day. And so, here in Egypt, there's acceptance for that. There's actually tours that cater to the Afrocentric concepts of Egypt. And I think that's important because at the end of the day, we are on the continent of Africa. This is Egypt, but we're in Africa, and everyone has a voice and deserves to be heard. And I personally learned a lot about consciousness through some of these teachers. Not to say I agree with everything. I don't entirely agree with Dr. Ben, Ashra Kwazi. I mean, they're all great. I've studied them all. And then of course, I'm also familiar with the Kemet school, which isn't Afrocentric, although they'll say that Stephen Mailer's teacher, Hakim, he would refer to him as an Afrocentric in some respects. But Kemet school is their own thing. I mean, for the most part, Kemetology is highly the imagination of Stephen Mailer, as far as I can see. I mean, it weaves in a lot of different concepts that are built on Christopher Dunn's work and the work of others, as well as their own experience. But for the most part, this discipline of Kemetology is something that was invented by Stephen Mailer. And, I was basically going to do the biopic. I was invited to do the biopic on Kemet School, on Hakeem, years ago, but we've severed ties since. We just don't have the same point of view. And that's okay, because I can also coexist with opposing opinions. I do it all the time. People come on our tours. They don't always agree with what I have to say, or I may not agree with what others have to say. And I like to look at things from different perspectives. I don't always conclude on one thing or hold a hard opinion either. I have different ideas, or I can look at things through different lenses, and I think we can learn a lot in that way. But yeah, as far as the problem, somebody was asking, if you're Afrocentric in Egypt, run. That's not necessarily true. You don't need to ever run in Egypt, because ultimately Egypt is a very safe place in comparison to America. I feel safer in Egypt than I do in most major US cities that I lived in. Walking the streets of Boston at night, or New York, or LA, all these places I've lived before. I feel much safer walking the streets of Egypt. Where I live in Luxor, it has its pros and cons for sure. There's different aspects. Little different for me, but let's see, wait, it's another question. Does Stephen Mailer and the late Hakeem have different beliefs or the same? I can't really speak for Stephen Mailer's belief system or Hakeem's belief system. I can only speak from my experience of working with Kemet School in the past. I have pretty much read everything you could possibly read on Hakeem. I've read his interviews, books, not only Stephen Mailer's books. Everybody goes to the Mailer and the Land of Osiris, but there's been at least 5 authors that have written about Hakeem. And the interesting thing is, a lot of times, some of the information is contradicted. You don't understand I missed it. I just missed the comment that came across about Afrocentrism. But I really, I don't want to go in. I don't want to get into this and make this. We're trying to celebrate Christmas. I don't want to make this like a conversation about race. I feel like I've addressed the question. There's definitely people that have been mistreated here, just as anywhere else, But, it is what it is. But for the most part, Egypt is very safe and friendly, especially to foreigners or expats, because you have to realize that Egypt thrives on tourism, and the people here are very welcoming. They have the biggest hearts. They'll invite you into their home. They'll offer you meals, and that's not just me. It's everybody. I get a lot of love in Egypt. I have a lot of friends from Alexandria to Aswan into Nubia. I get a lot of love everywhere I go, all over Egypt. But, it's a little different for me. The average tourist, we live here, I've been coming here for years, I've done a lot of work here, but the average tourist that comes here, or anyone that's ever come on my tours, will also tell you, it's safe. If you haven't been here, it's one thing. I remember my first experience coming here. Before I came here, there was a warning from the US not to go to Egypt because of terrorism and so forth. And I wasn't certain what to expect until I got here. Let's see. Graham Hancock says that the time of Zep Tepi, 10,400 BC, John Anthony West. I missed it. So I only read up to John, and thank you for keeping your content woke free. Unknown friend. Well, thank you. I appreciate your kind comment again. So I'm filming this from my iPhone, and the comments are coming across one at a time, and they display on the screen for a few seconds. And it just disappears, and I don't know how to get it back without shutting the live off. So I'm doing my best to read everything. If I miss a question, you can just ask it again, and I'll be happy to answer. I got as far as John Anthony West on that last question. And I don't know if it was there's different views, not all alternatives are equal. It's not like Kumbaya, they're not all in one camp. A lot of alternatives, there's opposition between them as well. I don't consider myself, everyone I guess looks at me as an alternative historian. I have a lot of friends in the alternative space, and I have some alternative ideas to the mainstream narrative, alternative interpretations. I don't consider myself mainstream or alternative. I am strictly independent. I am a practitioner of the Western esoteric tradition, and so a practitioner of the Rosicrucian tradition, and we are taught to look at things through multiple lenses. And so I don't consider myself in either camp. I have a lot of friends that are alternative historians. I also have a lot of friends that are straight up hardcore academic, historians and Egyptologists. And a lot of them are great people. So, I don't hate Egyptologists and or archaeologists. It's funny when John Anthony West refers to them as the quackademics, for sure. But I don't view all academia as a total quackademia. There's a lot of value there. There's a lot of value to draw from. Not everything is an exact science. What's up, Smiley? Smile. So, I actually, truth be told, I've learned a lot more from reading long, boring academic papers and dissertations that have absorbed entire weekends of my life than I have from probably 90% of the alternative stuff. I know what will help the entire human race, says Jason. Well, that's awesome. Feel free to share in the comments, because I'm all for helping humanity. That's really what it's all about. We're here to, well, I'm here at least to raise consciousness, and that's what it's all about for me. Truly, it's deeper than money. Obviously, I have a family to feed, so I'm always trying to promote trips and get people to the channel, or try to get some help on Patreon, because this is very challenging. It's difficult to do. As many of you know, if you follow the vlog series, Living in Luxor, you guys will know that we lost our home a little over about a year and a half ago in America, and that's why we ended up in Egypt. It's more cost effective for us to be here. And of course, all my work here, I've been coming here for over a decade back and forth. So it just made sense, at least for now. It may not be forever, but it makes sense to be here now. And so it can be challenging financially, especially when you have a small one and you're trying to do the ancient history mysteries thing. Yes, the tours are very expensive, but that doesn't mean the profit margin is very wide, especially my tours. I know what goes into them. The production, the costs go into production. It's a high value production. When you come to Egypt with me, you are going to have the ultimate experience in Egypt. A lot of people come, a lot of my friends come, and they might be backpackers, or they're used to traveling in a cost-effective way, but they're not used to all the nice hotels. That's the thing. You're going to be in the best hotels. You're going to eat the best food that's well curated, because you do have to be safe in Egypt when it comes to food. Not that it's unsafe, but it's not uncommon to get what we call Pharaoh's revenge, an upset stomach from the local bacteria that can be in the water. It's like anywhere in the world. Same thing in Mexico. You have to be cautious of what you eat, and if vegetables are washed, and if vegetables are washed with the water that has the bacteria, a lot of foreigners tend to get sick. A lot of the local people, local Egyptians, it doesn't affect them because their immune system is already immune to that. I've probably grown immune to it by now, but and you could get from the pharmacy here. Not that I'm a big fan of big pharma, but they do have antinol is like specially formulated for the local bacteria here. It helps. But anyway, yeah, it's not uncommon. People can get sick for a day or two if they eat at the wrong place, and it happens. But for the most part, we eat at places that are the best of the best, where the food's the best, the hygiene is the best, the most cleanliness that you can get. I can't drink water in England and California for the same reason. Yeah, John, we don't drink the water in California when we were living there. We moved to California before moving to Egypt. I moved to California because of the water in Northern California in the mountains, the untapped sources. Water is life. It's important to be around good water. Water is going to be a major issue, especially for those of you in the States within the next decade. And actually my book, so I have the Esoteric Symbolist Guidebook to the Luxor Temple of Man. That is a guidebook to a temple through an esoteric approach. But I have a more masterly work. Basically what I've been working on for the last almost 2 decades now, from traveling the world over, not only Egypt, also, Turkey, Mexico, all over the world, and tying together the narrative that, from the best of my knowledge and what I've experienced. It's basically going to be my life's work. The book is called Water Wizards, and it focuses on water, and it also focuses on the esoteric science you find around the world. Your channel really helps, and it is super cool. Keep doing what you do. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. Steve Hall. I just missed that comment. So we're just chilling out. It's Christmas Eve. I'm on the porch here, the balcony rather, not porch, a balcony. We got our bathing suits here because we're in the pool earlier, and both my wife and daughter are inside. They're already asleep. They're sleeping on Coptic Christmas Eve. Did you guys know that it was Christmas in Egypt? Well, Christmas Eve in Egypt right now. You're actually on Elephantine Island. Nice, Steve. Yes, that's correct. So we're in the Movenpick Hotel, and so this is Elephantine Island right here. So we're on an island in the center of the Nile. There's water on this side. This is the West Bank, where you're gonna find some of the tombs that were in the other day. And then over here, there's some water from the Nile, and then the East Bank. And in here is the city of Aswan, downtown. The Isis temple's over here. The other Isis temple in Philae is back here somewhere. Kalabsha, the Aswan quarries over here. Sahel Island, which is a bigger quarry that no one talks about. We went there. We actually got a lot of footage there this week. I'm blown away. I visited several quarries while I've been here in Aswan. I mean, essentially the whole island, the whole area here, most of Aswan is one massive quarry, one massive granite quarry. So this is red granite, or its famous name, or as we'd say in the States, its nickname is Aswan red granite. So it's, there's different types of granite. It's all granite, it's all still the same mineralogy, but it's a very unique Aswan granite, which isn't the deep red granite, and it almost looks like pink granite because it's a lighter color, but it's not exactly pink granite. So do the Coptics also open their presents on Christmas Day? Good question. I have no idea. Truth be told, I don't know enough about how the Copts celebrate this day. I know a little bit about, the Coptics, especially in this area in Luxor. We have a lot of Coptic Christians in Luxor, but I don't know enough about how they celebrate. I probably know more about Islam and how things are celebrated there, especially after being here for a year. Although I did read the Quran a long time ago, decades ago, and I have been coming here for a while, so. So this is the heated pool. Yeah, I wish I could answer more about Coptic Christmas. But if you guys have any questions about Egypt in general, or the esoteric tradition, or anything you want to know, or anything about the tours, I'm happy to answer whatever questions you guys may have. We're just hanging out on Coptic Christmas Eve after a long day. So today we went to what? Why are they celebrating Christmas now? Jason says. Well, yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure it's all based in astronomy somehow. Why today? I don't know. I'd have to look into that. Coptic Christmas. I don't know. If somebody could access Google and let me know, or actually access AI, who needs Google anymore when we have ChatGPT? If I remember, Coptic Christmas celebrates a feast. Yeah, it should. Unknown friend, any thoughts on Robert Sefer? I really don't want to get into commenting too much on other researchers, because to tell you the truth, I'm just kind of doing my own thing. I am familiar with pretty much everybody's work, but I've kind of stopped following everybody, just I check in now and then, see what people are up to, because I like to look at, the grand scheme of things. But for me, especially when it comes to alternative historians, I'm not really checking for stuff. Robert Seifert, there's some things that I just doesn't really resonate with me about his work. I think he has really good presentations and professional quality from like that point of view, but some of the narratives, videos I've seen of his haven't really resonated with me personally. Just not down with some of that. So yeah, I don't want, I know you guys asking questions about Robert Seifert and Stephen Mailer. I don't want to get too much into talking about other researchers. I'd rather be talking about ideas and events than people. Great video on the Osiris shaft. Dave says, you think they will ever pump all the water out again? That's a great question. I wonder about that myself. I think the more interest that we can bring around the Osiris shaft, people like myself and others who are making these videos, read that Russia and Ukraine Christmas is this weekend, could be an Orthodox thing. Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, I think it's basically Orthodox Christmas. I don't know enough, I couldn't tell you exactly why it's Coptic Christmas today. Yeah, those Osiris videos are great. Thank you so much. Yeah, for those of you that have been watching the Osiris Shaft videos and complimenting them, thank you so much for that. What temple feels the best in your opinion? Oh, in your body. It's hard to see some of these comments. What temple feels the best in your body? I mean, that's a complex question in a sense, because are we talking about the physical body, the spiritual body? Are we talking about the energy? Are we talking about from an intellectual point of view? Are we talking about what we're seeing? I guess you said feel, so going off the word feel. Feelings are really subjective, right? They're based, well, they can be objective. Sekhmet. Oh, I've got a video coming on Sekhmet that you guys don't want to miss. As far as feeling in the temple, for those of you that are into energy and energy work, stuff like that there, you have to keep in mind that feelings, for the most part, are internal or subjective, based on my own unique experiences and what I've been through. But then there's also objective feelings. So you have objective art, or you have objective architecture. That is architecture that is intended to impact your consciousness in a very specific and precise way. For example, the Luxor Temple of Man has that effect on humanity because of its geometries and proportions that are inherent within the temple's architecture. It's not only the symbolism. You guys can learn more about this in my book, but it's absolutely amazing. Last question. What are your thoughts on the biogeometry science? So I think are you referring to the work of Dr. Kareem and Robert Gilbert, stuff like that there? Biogeometry, like looking for the BG3 signatures with pendulums and vibrational science. All of that stuff is really rooted in radiesthesia, which is an esoteric art form. We talk about that on my esoteric tours of Egypt. It's a practice of Rosicrucians of the high degree. It's also a practice of the Jesuits and certain different esoteric organizations. It really became popularized, in the early 19th century in French esoteric occult circles, where people got into radiesthesia after Abbé Mermet, a priest that was part of the Jesuit order, released a book about his operations for using the pendulum in a specific way. And this was all co-signed by the church, everything like that there. And then it was widely accepted in esoteric circles. And then it kind of faded away, but it was popular for a bit. And so, it loosely ties into the concept of like divining rods and pendulums to test different vibrational frequencies and energies. Magnetism as well. Wondering if you know anything about Imhotep and if he had a hand in building any pyramids. Sure, AJ, so that's a great question. I was just at Imhotep's temple today. He did have, according to tradition, he did have a hand in building the step pyramid. Not only did he have a hand in it, but Imhotep was the architect behind it, the genius architect. Not only an architect, but Imhotep was a physician. So he was a doctor, he was an astronomer. He was, later the Greeks identify him with Asclepius. So he was also, a medicine man, in addition to astronomer and architect and essentially shaman. Imhotep was an enlightened being. Imhotep would have been one of the highest initiates, and so that's why he's valued in esoteric circles as well. But he was the one that Djoser commissioned to build the Djoser Step Pyramid, which, if you subscribe to the standard Orthodox Egyptological point of view, would be the first pyramid in the chronology of the ancient Egyptian civilization. It's a step pyramid. It predates the pyramids at Giza. And so that was the work of genius architect Imhotep. And here at Philae Temple of Isis, which is over there where I visited today, did some filming there today, we have a small temple that is on the island that is consecrated to Imhotep. Interestingly, another thing that's interesting about him is he's one of like two scribes. He was also a scribe that later, or priest that later are deified in the ancient Egyptian religion or civilization. So it's later more in Ptolemaic, Greek Ptolemaic times, but they built a temple to venerate him, as well as Amenhotep, son of Hapu, who is the genius architect behind the Luxor Temple of Man. The book is all about. These are all esoteric initiates. The tradition's really rooted with these guys. But those two are later deified. So like Amenhotep, son of Hapu, they had statues outside the Karnak temple that, people would venerate and leave offerings for, and same with Imhotep. And another interesting fact about Imhotep is that it's thought that in the Old Kingdom, there was a drought. We know there was a drought, and according to the text, we know this. I was actually over here the other day at Sahel Island, where there's one of the amazing quarry. I can't wait to show you guys the footage for this. But anyway, they also have what's called, the locals call it the starvation stone. I think technically they refer to it as the famine stone, and it is the stone that talks about the drought, and it's commemorating the time that Djoser sent Imhotep from Saqqara all the way up here to Aswan, to Elephantine Island, because of the drought. And it was here that Imhotep went to the temple of Khnum. Khnum is the ram head, the ram head on the man's body, and Khnum is he who fashions humanity on the potter's wheel. This is later, the same principle later comes out in Christianity when, they're building humanity from clay. I think I talked about this at the beginning of the video. Anyway, Khnum fashions humanity on the potter's wheel, as well as the Ka, which fuses, it's the life force that fuses with your first breath. You'll often see depictions of like the man and then another person behind him. It's not a person, it's his Ka in Egyptian reliefs next to Khnum, who fashions them on the potter's wheel. And here at Elephantine Island, the triad, wherever you go throughout Egypt, you have different groups of threes. So in Luxor, we have Amun, who is the breath of the animating life force, if you will, the invisible matrix behind everything. Amun means hidden. And so it's the hidden force behind creation that it permeates through all of us and all things. And then Amun's consort, Amunet, and you also have his other consort, Mut. Mut is the mother of Khonsu, so their offspring is Khonsu. That's the triad where I live in what would have been Was for the ancient Egyptians, Thebes for the Greeks. Today, the Arabs call it Luxor, which means fortified fortress. But here in Elephantine Island, we have a different triad, which is Khnum, Satet or Satis, and Nukit. And those three are the triad that are assigned to this area. So Imhotep came from Saqqara, commissioned by Djoser to make offerings he actually suggested, he's the one that suggested it to Djoser, and then he came here, traveled all this way and made offerings to Khnum in the temple of Khnum in order to try to revive the flood of the Nile. And it was, they say, during his sleep, which I think might be misinterpreted. I think it's misunderstood in Egyptology. When they refer to the sleep, I think they're talking more about a dreamtime state, like a meditative state, a meditative state, or trance, if you will, where you can channel certain energies within your body to suppress the von Econamo neurons in your brain to allow the divine to enter your temple, your body, your house, right? The temple is your house. And so in doing so, you can do what's called channeling, or what some people refer to as praying or connecting with the divine. We can experience what Paramahansa Yogananda would refer to as cosmic consciousness, what the Rosicrucians would refer to as cosmic bliss, what others may refer to as gnosis, receiving information from the divine. And so that's what Imhotep did with Khnum, and by giving him offerings, then the Nile began to flood again, which brings life for the ancient Egyptians, because the flood brings the rich alluvial salt and rich alluvial soil and deposits it along the Nile, which then brings the crops, which then feeds the people, which are then able to, protect the country and grow through the country and prosper in Egypt. So the Nile obviously was very important. It's thought that, and again, Imhotep came here. It's thought that the Nile started here in Aswan, at Philae, opposite of Imhotep's temple. That's next on the island. That is next to the kiosk of Trajan. But on the other side, you have of the island of Philae, where the Isis temple is, you have the section that was built by Hadrian, another Roman emperor. Hadrian and Trajan were two of the more human Roman emperors. They still appreciated the Egyptian culture in a sense, and still carried on some of the traditions and participated, unlike most of the other Roman emperors. Anyway, there on the walls, you actually see the birth of the Nile. And you see this image perpetuated all over the internet. People, ancient astronaut theorists will try to say it's a man in a spaceship and so forth. You see what's similar motif in other cultures, but here the figure is Hapi, the androgynous grandfather, grandmother, nature of the Nile, pouring the water, and he is encircled by a serpent with the head of a vulture, underneath a bunch of rocks, which are representing Bija Island, which back in the day would have actually been called Senmut Island, which ultimately is the primordial island here. It is, the ancient Egyptians believed that in the beginning of time, not time, but in the beginning, creation was all chaos. It was the waters of noon, the watery chaos of noon, and from that arose the primordial mound out of the waters. This is the beginning of creation, and here the physical manifestation of that primordial mound would be Senmut Island, or today they call it the island of Bija, which you actually see some hieroglyphic reliefs inscribed on some of the stones there, like we see at Sahila, which is amazing, which we see at Sahel Island. It reminds me of the petroglyph sites and like the petroglyph parks in America. It's just hundreds of petroglyphs. Here we have over 600 hieroglyphs etched into stone that nobody ever sees. You never see this stuff on YouTube. You never see it on the internet. I'm sure there's a few pictures on the internet here and there, but it's very rare. I got a lot of video footage there the other day that I'm going to be uploading to the channel soon. And this site is important, Sahel Island, because there's probably more quarrying going on over there than the Aswan Quarry, where we find the unfinished obelisk. That was suitable for obelisks, but all the granite, quartz, and even basalt that we find on the other island nearby, we see so many quarry marks. There's actually another quarry right over here, this mountain. The only ones I know that have been here was a Russian research mission. Actually, if you guys are familiar with the Yasita project, they were here some years back. It's right back here, another quarry. And so again, this whole area is where the ancient Egyptians came to quarry stone and bring back down the Nile to Thebes, the capital, which is today Luxor, and even as far as Giza. There are some small granite deposits around Giza, but the granite, the Aswan red granite, all comes from Aswan. Not just the Aswan quarry, that's a popular misconception. It didn't all come out of the Aswan quarry. Well, the quarry that we know today, which is an archaeological site, because in reality, that's a fictional border that we made up in modern times. We call it the Aswan Quarry, and we put an enclosure wall around it, but all of the neighboring homes are sitting on top of the granite that was quarried, and you can see granite outside the quarry that was quarried. And somebody dropped that plate down here. And even across the street from the Aswan Quarry is a cemetery, which was part of the quarry and part of the canal that was installed to get the stone out of the bedrock from the Aswan Quarry and into the canal to channel it to the Nile to eventually get it all the way to Luxor and Giza and so forth. I've been to a lot of the more obscure quarries in Egypt and filmed all of them. I just haven't had the chance yet to get a lot of this footage up. I hope to do that soon. I've just been busy on finishing up the book. But again, if you guys have any, I've been rambling on here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Now is the time. This again is my 1-year anniversary of living in Egypt as an American expat, and it has been quite an experience. Let's see, what's your best moment of 2022, asks Dave. Good question. Let me give that some thought. Best moment. You know, for me personally, my best moment would have probably been some of the personal experiences that I had with my family here, different places we went, different things we've done together. I have a few that come to mind. I guess it's hard to pick one over the other, but I've also had a lot of other great moments throughout the year. I mean, the tours we did this year, I had a couple of amazing tours, the tour with Johanna, James, and then the tour after that with Kaylee. Great people came through on both tours. I always manage, I don't know what it is, but I always manage to attract the best people in the world on my tours. We're always surrounded by like-minded individuals. Not everybody agrees on everything, you know. Like I said, a couple of years ago, I did the tour with Christopher Dunn, the Lost Technologies in Esoteric Symbolism tour, and I had some people that were there were straight up, you know, esotericists and symbolists, and then others that were there specifically for the Lost Technology. We had people in the group that just don't subscribe to the whole Lost Technology idea. Then we had people in the, you know, and everybody had there were people that had opposing opinions, but yet we all got along, and it was like one little family moving. It's always like this on my tours. It's an amazing time. And that's really what makes the tours what they are. I mean, obviously there's my experience and, you know, the knowledge and information that I bring to them, as well as knowing how to cultivate a good time for people. We always have a good time. It's always fun. A man discovered that some blue paint in tombs is luminescent. Have you seen it? Asked Smile. Yes, we talk about it on our tours. You're talking about the Egyptian blue. I always discuss that when we go to the temple of the temple at Abydos, the temple of Seti at Abydos, because there's some examples in that temple, in some reliefs that still have the blue paint intact, and we talk about the luminescent aspect and a little bit more, because there's a little bit of esoteric stuff that goes along with that. I don't want to say too much here either, because, you know, some of the competition out there might be watching, and, you know, can't give away everything. I mean, I talk about a lot of stuff on the channel, and in reality, I don't talk about all that much on the channel. It's on the tours. A lot of people come on my tours, and then they walk. I've been called a fire hose of knowledge. A lot of people are blown away. They tell me they follow the channel, they follow my work, and, you know, they're already impressed. But when they come on the tours, that's really when thank you, I appreciate that. That's really when I come alive, and when I just start dropping the knowledge bombs and get into the deeper esoteric aspects, especially on my esoteric Egypt tours, you know. And I have a lot of people, everybody's usually pretty happy with the overall experience, but a lot of people, I think, are shocked sometimes by, or really overwhelmed with all the information that we provide on these tours. So we get into a lot of the deeper esoteric stuff. But yeah, I do have the Esoteric Symbolist Guidebook to the Luxor Temple of Man coming out. It is a symbolist approach to the temple, and there's also some practical applications in the book as well. This is really going to be my first book, but it's just a guidebook. I am working on a more scholarly work. This will be like my big signature book called Water Wizards, and it focuses not only on ancient Egypt but also the ancient Maya and civilizations from around the world. Love listening to your tours. You do great work. Hope to take one in person someday, AJ. AJ, we'd love to have you join. When stars align, we'll see you in Egypt. Can you pre-order the book? Pre-orders will go up. I haven't set that up yet because I was waiting to see if I could get a publishing deal. And really, I think at this stage, the only ones that I'd want to publish my book would be Inner Traditions, Bear and Company. I mean, I'm sort of in the same vein. That's the home of Schwaller de Lubitsch's work, all his published works. If they don't publish it, then I'm prepared to self-publish. And the guidebook, I think, is too small for them. It's not enough of, I don't think it meets their page requirements. And I haven't really found the inroads in there yet. It's not like I have the relationship established with a publisher, or publishers are reaching out. Nobody's reaching out, It's not like I'm getting all these invites to do podcasts and radio shows. I get a few here and there. I'm also busy with the tours. But even the channel, it's not like I have a whole lot of subscribers yet. So, but that's the thing. I was waiting to put it all together to see if I could work with a publisher, but I think the guidebook is a little too short for a publisher. And so I am going to self-publish. I mean, I have years of experience in distribution, marketing, publishing from the music industry side of things. I no longer work in the music industry, but I used to be the CEO of a record label and worldwide distribution company. I owned many record labels. I managed dozens of artists and produced artists and developed marketing campaigns for major label artists when they were still independent artists. I helped upstream a lot of artists and get them even television contracts and major label deals. This was all back in the day. I've moved away from the music industry in between 2010, 2012, but I still have a lot of some of the relationships and the skill set. And so I'm going to, utilize that knowledge to publish my own book and distribute my own book. There will be both digital, it'll be available in digital formats as well as physical copies. It'll be available on Amazon. I keep getting incoming phone calls and I'm losing my signal as a result. Yeah, so the best place to do that, get on the email list at anyextee.com. That's ANYEXTEE.com. You can join the email list right as you get to the front page. And I'm going to make pre-orders available through the website at a reduced rate. I'll probably do some signed copies as well before the book is, that'll be for like a digital version before it's published, and physical copies are published and it's available in Amazon and bookstores worldwide. Yeah, but right now, the book's just not ready because I'm still waiting to get back a few endorsements. I already have some great endorsements. And so I'm just waiting for a few more to come in. And once I have those, and I'm still finalizing the layout and design. It's almost done, just a few minor tweaks. But the book is pretty much done. And so it's going to become a priority to finish that as soon as the endorsements come back and get it out. I don't have a release date yet, but I will soon, and we'll make pre-orders available. I appreciate all the love and support. Those of you who are interested in getting the book and supporting the work, I mean, it truly means the world to me. I'm sure you'll find value in the book. And yeah, thank you for supporting the channel and my research. Johnny, it is a beautiful night on Coptic Christmas Eve in Egypt. And we're looking forward to celebrating Coptic Christmas Day tomorrow by driving back home to Luxor from Aswan. I'll be stopping at the Temple of Edfu. So today we were at Philae, Temple of Isis. It is here we find the Mamisi. A Mamisi inside the temple, by the way, which is unusual. Mamisi is essentially a late Greek Ptolemaic invention. It means birth house. And at the temple we visited today, we visit this temple on my tours as well. This is the birthplace of Horus. It's a temple of Isis, consecrated to Isis, but it's also where her son is born, Horus, the principle of return to source, which, like it or not, Isis becomes Mary, Horus becomes Jesus. It is the same principle of the Christ, the principle of return to source. Horus is representing the same principle really before Christianity even becomes a thing. Already 1500 years before the birth of Christ, you find that principle in the ancient Egyptian tradition. So we're celebrating Christmas and the birth of Christ. In a sense, we're also we're celebrating that principle. We're also celebrating the birth of Horus. So we visited the birth house of Horus today. Strange synchronicity. Again, I didn't even realize it was Coptic Christmas Eve until later, after we visited the temple. And it turns out tomorrow on Christmas, Coptic Christmas Day, we're going to be visiting the temple. Back on our way back home to Luxor, we're going to be visiting the temple of Edfu, which is the temple of Horus, which from an esoteric perspective could be viewed as the temple of transformation. It is here at this temple of Edfu we find the famous building texts where people get ideas for Atlantis, as well as the contentions of Horus versus Set. Horus represents the return to source. Set represents the principle of opposition, that which provides opposition for the return back to source. So in order to overcome that and become a true master, an illumined individual, you have to learn how to reconcile the two opposites. You can't run from opposition. People look at Set as the bad guy and Horus as the good guy, Jesus is the good guy and Satan is the bad guy, but you actually need both principles, just like you need light and dark, sun and the moon, masculine and feminine, because you need complementary opposites, opposing forces. You have to have male and female principles in order to produce new life. You have to have a positive and negative current in order to produce electricity. This is the rule of thirds, not the rule of thirds, the law of three rather, essentially the Trinity in Christianity, and later becomes the Trinity. But we will be visiting Horus's temple tomorrow, and Horus again is representing the same principle as the Christ figure, which is represented different ways in different traditions around the world. You have different ideas of salvation and reincarnation. Whereas Horus, the king strives to, the living king is essentially Horus, right? The living pharaoh is Horus, and the pharaoh in the afterlife, the deceased pharaoh, becomes Osiris, his father, which then gives birth to the principle again, but the principle is never really born because it's an eternal principle, because the return to source is eternal. That's why when you go into the temple of Philae over here, you see Horus seated on the lap of Isis, Iset, and really Horus's ancient Egyptian name is Heru. Heru, the Greek corruption, becomes Horus, and Iset, Uset becomes Isis. You see a disproportionate infant sitting on the lap of Isis being suckled. Isis is using her breast to suckle Horus in the same way that, and in this case where you see it in the reliefs on the temple walls, it's not really the proportions of a baby, and it's not like the ancient Egyptians didn't know proportions and geometry. They certainly did. It's that they're intentionally depicting Horus, the figure of Horus being older. And so this is the same symbolic motif that we see in, as John Anthony West would say, a gajillion Madonnas all throughout the Renaissance, where you have the big baby Jesus on the lap of Mary. Isis becomes Mary, Horus becomes Jesus, and you see more of an old, wizened man on her lap instead of the infant Jesus. Baby Jesus, the image of the baby infant Jesus, doesn't really come into vogue until Victorian times. It was the Victorian era that baby Jesus starts appearing on boxes of chocolate. And so again, we see that same principle here in Egypt. I just missed one of the questions. Whoever that was, if you want to put the question up in the chat again, I'll be happy to answer it. I can't go back and see any of the questions because I'm doing this from my iPhone. And like I said, the comments will pop up. They'll be on the screen for a few seconds and then they're gone. And I don't know how to retrieve them and get them back. I think that's it. Doesn't look like any more questions are coming through. So Now is your time to ask a question if you want to. Otherwise, I'll be signing out. I'm going to go work on editing some videos on Coptic Christmas Eve. I think that's going to be it. So peace out, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on Coptic Christmas Eve here in Egypt. Who knew that it was Christmas Eve in Egypt today? I didn't know until today. It's also, again, the 1 year anniversary of us moving to Egypt. And so peace out, everybody. Peace, Steve. Smile. Dave. John. Cheers. Goodbye. Peace out. Thank you so much. John, thank you for always joining the live chats, man. I truly appreciate your support. All of you guys, actually. Everybody and anybody watching this. And again, if you want to support the channel, who else do we have? Ting Ting Shiny, Morphol, I know that's you. I'm mispronouncing the name. Morpholif. He was just on our tour. I miss you, man. Johnny, have a good night. Yeah, we had such a great time on the last tour. Again, if you guys want to join us for the next tour, who's this? Angel, 1 year and you don't know. What is it that I don't know, Angel? Nerds. Mr. Sheebley. Ancient Nerds in the place to be. Shout out to Ancient Nerds. 1 year and I don't know. Oh, when Christmas is. Yeah, I know. Shame on me. Well, you know, that's the thing. We came here last year, New Year in Mexico. Yeah, my wife is a Mexica. My wife, you know, her family is from Mexico. Perupecha. We came here 1 year ago. We came here on Christmas, not realizing it was Christmas. And here we are a year later, so. But again, I mean, you can only study so much. Coptic and Orthodox Christianity isn't really my, my forte. I know a little bit. I think I know enough. But, I mean, well, shame on me for not knowing the date of the major holiday. Healthy dose of religious shame. Anyway, this is Anyextee signing out. I hope you guys enjoyed this. It has been a long day. I've been up since 5 a.m. in the morning, and we did quite a bit of traveling today. We went to the island of Philae. We did some filming at the temple. We also went to the Nubian village. There is so much to learn in Egypt. There is, and that's the thing. People consider me a teacher, but I'm really just a student on the path. I'm still learning. There's so much more to learn. I feel like I know a great deal. I consider myself well-read on ancient Egyptian history, Egyptology, the culture, and certainly the esoteric aspects of Egypt, the symbolism. Thumbs down, angel dreams. That's the second negative comment. That's cool. More power to you if you want to have thumbs down and tell me I don't know anything. That's fine. I don't know everything. I mean, I don't know anybody that does know anything. If you know any all-omniscient human beings, then great, more power to them. But I'm not going to let the negative comments cramp my Christmas Eve. I'm going to go in and edit my videos and enjoy myself. We are students on the path. That's right, Ting Ting. We are all students on the path. And angel dreams and find out. I don't know. I'm missing your comments. Find out what. You've got the answers, so you could let us know in the comments. Amen. Yeah, amen comes from Amun. Amun is the principle. Amun means hidden. It is the principle of Amun. Again, the breath across the water is the animating life force that permeates all things, the hidden matrix behind all of creation. That is Amun, which comes into vogue after Mantu. Thank you, Anyextee. Great video. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the compliment. Peace out, everybody.